spotlight on the Salem Memorial District Hospital, and they doubled up on me today. We got Jack, we got Brittany, and good morning, guys.
Morning.
Finally get to take that mask off for a little bit, huh?
Yeah.
Well, it's good to have you both here, and we've got Jack from Cardiopulmonary. I like to call him Drummer Jack. Jack's a guy after my own heart. He gets to play the drums, have some fun, and likes music. So we're all in the same condition here. We always like that stuff. And then Brittany's here, and Brittany's going to talk a little bit about what she does with the high school and stuff. So we like that too. One of how many local hospitals actually do that with their high schools? Brittany, do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know very many.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting program to Salem. Kind of initiated, so I'm pretty excited about it. So I hope it continues to work out really well. So we'll get to you in just a second. Jack, we're going to start with you today.
All right.
You're pumped. I can see it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Jack's with the cardiopulmonary department. First off, a little bit of reorganization at the hospital have put you guys in a new location, haven't it?
Yeah, we are at the end of the hallway right before you go into surgery, which there are signs up now that show where we're at.
Makes it easier.
Makes it easier. They weren't there for a little bit, but
Makes it easier. So tell a little bit people the difference. Right now, when you go into cardiopulmonary, it's actually pretty wide open right there,
it's
isn't it?
a pretty big area. We have, as soon as you walk in, you'll see the therapist in there at the desk, or, our desk is there. To the right-hand side, we have a patient area where we could do EKGs, Holter monitors, cardiac event monitors. To the left-hand side, we have our area for our cardiac stress tests, exercise stress tests. We have our room in there for just pulmonary function tests by itself with a closed door, so there's more privacy. Then, we have other little areas within there, but everything's within the same area versus before we would have to, do stuff here, take you back here to do some stuff, back there. So everything's right together now.
So that makes it a lot easier for everybody, patients as well as for the whole department itself. So the communication there makes it a little bit easier this time, doesn't it?
Yes.
A lot easier. Well, anyway, if you have to use the cardiopulmonary department, which I have had to use, it isn't very easy to get to. Once you go in there, of course, when I had to go in there were no signs up, and it was trying to find a needle in a haystack. But thank goodness the receptionist took me back that way and said, "They're in here." So I said, "Okay, great." One of the neat things is with our cardiopulmonary is that it works well with SMDH family medicine. So you guys are in good communication with that, because as soon as they let you know we're on our way down, makes it easy. It's right there. You don't have to try. I always imagine. I remember having to do this in St. Louis one time. I had to walk. I can't tell you how many floors to try and find one department to do a stress test, and then go back and get an EKG. And I had to walk to get the EKG. It wasn't even in the same room. And I said, "Well, how's the stress test going to be reflecting on my EKG when I had to walk half the hospital?" Well, they said, "Well, it's just extra exercise for you." And I didn't run. They had me running in this one. So everything in Salem is pretty condensed now. And the way they have your department set up, all those functions can be done quickly and efficiently in one location.
Yep.
It's pretty nice.
And now, too, because the outpatient registration area is now open with a waiting room, where before people would come in for a test, and if we were in our office, if we're doing something, there was just chairs right there. And so you could have somebody just sitting in a chair waiting for us to show up. I mean, we could be in the ER for up to an hour plus, to where now when people come for their scheduled appointment, there's a waiting room for them. We get called, and then when we're ready for the appointment, we walk down there, get the patient, bring them there. So there's none of that just sitting there forever hoping something happens.
Yeah, and thinking you're forgotten.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does happen too. Tell me a little bit about Salem has a unique opportunity for people to use a sleep lab. That's one of the things that the Salem Memorial District Hospital has, and it's been reaccredited.
Yep.
And so tell us a little bit about the sleep lab, if you would.
So the sleep lab, there's 3 different types of sleep studies. So you have your home sleep studies, where you would come in, we show you how to wear the device, give you some education. You actually take the device home, set it up, and you wear it from home, and then bring it back to us. Then there's 2 different types of in-lab sleep studies. You have your your basic, and then you have what's called a split night. So your basic is just, I won't say always, but normally for somebody who's never had one done, you would come in at 8 p.m. at night. You'd spend the night kind of like you're staying at a hotel, except for you're wired up for the study, and it just monitors you the whole night. Now, on the split study, it's kind of the same thing. They'll set it up, but if they notice, you need to try a CPAP, well, they'll stop that study, put you on a CPAP, and start going from there, where, like, the attended just the straight, they don't do anything, and basically all the studies, like even your home study, it goes back, our sleep doctor reads them. He'll give a recommendation of what needs to be done. If you need to wear a CPAP, he may give you some ranges, but all in all, and this is where some people get confused because, they'll do a home sleep study. Well, then they get a CPAP, and they're like, well, this is what I have done. Well, you've got to come back. From that point, you have to come back and make sure the CPAP's actually working.
Right.
So I think that's where some people get kind of confused because they're like, well, I have the machine, and the doctor told me these settings. Well, you need to come back and make sure it's working because, yeah, you might have something, but just because you have it doesn't mean it's working. I mean, it's got to be checked.
Right. And the idea is the optimal performance to let you sleep the best.
Yes.
So if you're doing it on your own and you don't have it checked, you're not really going to know if it's doing what it's supposed to do.
Exactly.
So, okay, so very good. So the sleep studies are very important because if you don't get the right amount of sleep, or if you get what I'll call an anxious sleep, when you wake up, it feels like you've gone 15 rounds with Joe Frazier. It really can. You can get up, and a lot of people have dreams that keep them going and things of that nature, but a lot of those dreams may be a result of not getting a good sound sleep.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very, very possible. And what you want to do right now is, with a sleep study, if you have issues with your sleep, you definitely want to get them addressed because sleep is very important. It really, and Jack, you know this more than anybody else, it kind of recharges you for the next day, right?
Exactly.
So if you're fighting all night long, you get up the next day, you're just not going to be at your top game, are you?
Be tired. I mean, you've got lots of different issues that play in effect then. I mean, I've had people I know who didn't get a good night's sleep working at somebody I know at the hospital, leaving the next morning, wrecks a vehicle because they fall asleep driving. I mean, it's just one of those, and that might not play a role into overall everybody, but just in general, that getting a good night's sleep. I mean, you got to do it because you got your different levels. You've got, your different stages of sleep, and if you aren't meeting those stages like you should in order, or if you're skipping stages, your body's completely out of whack.
Yeah, and it helps. First, it helps in so many different ways. Number one, not only to relax you and give you that necessary rest your body needs, but also it helps your heart, helps you breathe. Your breathing is very important because it can alter the way that you sleep. So that can change your heartbeat. I mean, that can change your metabolic rates, things of that nature. But also the thing is that this is a time when you're not only recharging, but all the different systems in your body, all your functions and everything, they're all kind of to get a little bit of rest, to get to come back. I remember when I was in the hospital, they said we want you to rest as much as possible and get as much sleep as you can, because they had an IV in me and they wanted me to get as much rest because we want you to get healthy, and the only way you're going to get healthy is by resting with a good sleep. And I'm thinking, okay, well, they gave me a little mild sedative, and when you're in the hospital, it's not always easy to get a good night's sleep. And
no, because there's somebody there every couple hours.
Every few hours. But if you can get in 3 or 4 hours, in a hospital, that's pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
And then if you wake up groggy, usually after they, take a little blood or take your temperature and your oxygenation level or whatever it is with the finger that they, whatever they call that.
Pulse ox.
Okay. Then they let you go back to sleep, and you can usually fall back to sleep pretty quick, and then they bring your breakfast in or whatever. So it's not too bad, but it's not for another couple hours you don't get your breakfast, so you can get a little bit more sleep. But it's very important that you get that because your bodily functions need to, like your kidneys, they function. They don't go to sleep. They function all the time, but they're cleansing things, and your whole body does that. So very important to get that good night's sleep. Sleep lab is not available in many small rural hospitals, is it?
No. Not too many. And like I said, we do every month's different. I get a couple days out of the month of when we do them. Normally a minimum of 2 days, up to 5 days a month is when I do my sleep studies. We could do up to 2 patients a night. So normally I don't have too bad of an issue of getting people in. I mean, sometimes it may take up to a month to get you in, but we're pretty good about getting people scheduled and in.
Okay, so if you need to have a sleep study done, or maybe your doctor recommends it, they know maybe you're dragging when you go see the doctor, and it says, how are you sleeping? And if you can't answer that question, a lot of times you might need a sleep study, because one night, we all know that sometimes people get put under stress or strain. It's tax time, it's Christmas time, you don't get the right amount of sleep because you got family and stuff in there. This year's been a little bit different with some of that, but one of the things that's still very important is your sleep. So it doesn't matter why. What matters is that you still get it.
Yeah.
Very important. So if you need a sleep study, go to your doctor and they can prescribe it. You just can't walk in and do a sleep study, or can
Yeah.
you?
No, they got write an order for it.
Okay, so see your physician and talk to them about your sleep habits, because a lot of times, we all get bad habits sometimes, but a lot of times we sleep on the edge. I always say of the edge of consciousness, and you're not getting a good night's sleep when you're doing that.
No.
People are light sleepers. They hear one noise and bang, they're up like a light. So, if you're that on edge, you're not getting that good restful sleep that you need.
Yep.
Okay. Jack, if anybody has any questions about the sleep studies or cardiopulmonary, can they call you?
Oh, yeah. It's 573-729-6626, and just ask for cardiopulmonary, or it's extension 2530.
Right. And Jack's got a nice office in there, too. So I saw that. That looked pretty good, man. You could have probably had your own little layout in there, TV and
Yeah, it's nice.
a little refrigerator back there.
Yeah, coffee machine, coffee pot.
Probably 2 coffee machines.
Hey, there actually is. There's the regular one and the espresso one.
There you go. And the espresso one probably gets used a lot for the sleep studies.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that. Very good. Thank you, Jack. Appreciate
problem.
it. All right, Brittany. How are you doing, girl? Did you have a
Doing
good
all
New
right.
Year?
I did.
Very good. Very good. All right. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about the high school sports program, and we kind of touched on this a little bit before, but we're going to do it again, and how important this is, especially now with COVID. This is kind of crazy because it has changed the way the program is, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, we're still there. Me and Nicole, the nutritionist or dietitian at the hospital, go to school every Wednesday. So we're there right after school on every Wednesday for anybody that needs to be seen, either with an injury or nutrition questions. We are wearing masks. Sports players are now wearing masks as well as fans, but
Just makes it a little bit harder to communicate, doesn't it?
it does. Yeah, it's hard to hear. It's hard for them to see what you're talking about without reading the lips or facial expressions. Or
So have you seen any resistance from athletes? I know when we played, the coach always said, don't go see them unless you're really hurt. But you don't really want somebody to be really hurt before they come and see you, because you can keep that injury from becoming really hurt, can't
Absolutely, yes. Yes, before it gets really bad. And that's usually when we see them. Okay, I don't know what's going on here. Go up there, go see them. And by that point, depending on what's going on, we can refer them out to the hospital for x-ray if they need it. They're also welcome to come to my office if they need further evaluation that we can't do up at the school.
Right.
But other than that, like if it's before it gets that bad, we can always do things like K-taping it,
Right.
Athletic taping, ice. We have some TENS units up there that we can do some TENS stuff on if they need it.
But the diagnosis of the situation is critical, because once you get them started on a plan,
Right.
let's just say they have a swollen ankle, and you're thinking, okay, and the guy says, well, I came down, I stepped on somebody's foot and rebound on basketball. Okay, well, it happens all the time, right? All right, so they kind of tweak their ankle a little bit. It's swollen. They come to you and they say, okay, well, I tweaked my ankle, but this is like the 5th time I've tweaked it. Well, that ankle is swollen. You guys sit up and it's all good, but you just can't go right back out there and play on it. You may need to tape it. You may
Right.
need to watch it, and they may have pulled a couple of ligaments in there too, to where it's weaker.
Right. Yeah, and that'd be something good to start them on something, some kind of rehab program. And we can do that too. We can set them up with some either TheraBand exercises, stabilization exercises. If they need to go out further to PT or something like that, we have that availability as well. So,
One of the things, especially with hard court sports, is knees. And of course, when the players, a lot of times when they go down and get a layup, and we'll kind of call it a breakaway, they end up on the floor because somebody's usually right underneath them and kind of running them a little bit. But knees and hips and lower back are really bad injuries in basketball because you need all of those
right.
to basically move up and down the floor with fluidity. When that stops happening and you get a little sore ankle or you get a little sore knee, athletes tend to overcompensate. So when they do that, if my left hip is hurting, I'll limp a little bit, but I'll work it. I'll get that fixed out. Well, then the right knee starts to go bad, and then the left ankle might go bad because you're running awkwardly and you're stepping to try and keep it from hurting. And this is why you don't want the injuries to get to that advanced level, right?
Right. Yeah, and it just keeps traveling up the line, then it worsens the injury over time. So, the quicker you see something, it's just a little twinge, get it looked at. Even if it's nothing or you think it's nothing, it may just be a tight muscle here or a muscle imbalance, and that's something we can work on too. So, you don't want it to progress along to something else.
And even bruises, which, a surface bruise isn't all that big a deal, but a lot of times it'll swell up, but it will keep the muscle from operating properly. So you definitely want to ice it up. But a bone bruise, a deep bone bruise, now that can be very painful, and that can last for a long time, can't it?
Absolutely, yes.
And that's not something you want to joke around with
Right.
because there's special treatment for that, right?
Right.
Okay, so if somebody doesn't know what they have and they come to you and they say, I got a bruise on my leg, it won't go away, it's throwing red flags at you.
Right. Yep, and we've seen that before too. And a lot of times the kids are like, I don't want to do anything about it. I don't want to do this or that. And so we have to kind of work there too. And, okay, let me talk to your parent. We'll try and figure out what we want to do with it and stuff like that as well.
Are you finding the coaches are getting more used to you being there to where they can refer their athletes to you now?
I think some of them. I know we've had some changes in coaches, so I think
Right.
some of the newer coaches aren't really as aware of the program as much. But some of the ones that have been around for a while, we are.
So, like the beginning of the year, do you have a program to kind of introduce yourself to all the coaches, and this is what we do? Maybe not this past year
Yeah,
with COVID. I mean, it's been kind of crazy.
Right. We have previously. This year we haven't been able to do that so much just because everything's been crazy and everybody's not there at the same time and stuff like that as well with the hybrid schedule and
Right. Crazy.
yes.
With the different sports that Salem has, obviously we've got volleyball, you got softball, football, basketball, you got track, you've got tennis, you got, cross country. Injuries that you suffer in one sport you might suffer a very similar injury in another sport, but it's a totally different injury, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it has to be treated differently, correct?
Yes, there's different treatments. There's also what we want to do is specific warm-ups for those sports as well to help prevent some of those specific type injuries because there are different ways to warm up for different sports. It's not a general warm-up for every sport.
I mean, not just 2 or 3 push-ups, couple sit-ups, jumping jacks, and you're ready to go.
Right.
It's not that way anymore. So maybe you might explain how necessary stretching really is to try and avoid injuries and get that body start to get warm up, get the blood flowing, as they always used to say. The coach, get that blood flowing, get out there. We used to do stretching, and this goes back into the 70s in our college hockey program. 15 minutes of stretching before each practice and every game.
Absolutely.
And it's important to do that and not just go through the motions, right?
Right. Yeah, you want to get those muscles warmed up so you're not pulling or straining something. You want to get some flexibility, work on your flexibility, absolutely, as well as strength exercises incorporated into some of those too. Just to help with the flexibility, the stabilization. Make sure you're getting stretched evenly on both sides. I know sometimes people tend to favor one side, so one side may be stronger than the other side.
It hurts on the other side. Britney, come on.
We need to work on that, because that's typically when we see most of the time, or the injury most of the time, is when we have a muscle imbalance. So one side's stronger than the other side, or the abs are weak a lot of times. You're not breathing properly. And that's something that most of the time we see that people skip over, is breathing, how important breathing is in sports and athletics. If you're not breathing properly, how that can affect.
Got to have that oxygen
training.
intake.
Absolutely.
You got to have it. Otherwise, you're going to not be as, well, let's put it this way, as effective as an athlete as you should be.
Right.
You're going to be short of breath. You're not going to be able to go very long. You're not going to be the asset to your team that you want to be.
Right.
Proper breathing is very important. Also, but knowing what injuries you have, and I'm doing this not only for the athletes that you have at school, who should know before they go into the tin gym and start working out that they should be stretching.
Right.
And especially stretching any kind of muscle that has been injured in the past. Let's say you had a groin injury. You don't want to be getting on pulling on stuff with your groin if you haven't stretched out, because if that thing twings again, you're going to know it. I had a pretty severe hamstring injury, and it was when I was at St. Louis University playing hockey, and of course it didn't happen at practice. It happened at a wedding. Guy was drunk and hit me in the back and yanked my leg out, and I didn't even really know it happened until the next morning when I couldn't get up, couldn't sit,
Right.
Anyhow, I had a friend of mine who's a chiropractor, and he also had done some research as being a doctor, and I went to him, and he goes, son, you all but tore this thing.
Right.
And I said, okay, well, it hurt a lot. I said, how long is it going to take? He said, well, when you go to St. Louis University, they're going to tell you 4 to 6 weeks. And I said, really? 4 to 6 weeks? I can't do that. And I said, how long? Okay. I said, your expert opinion. He said, well, if you want me to treat it, we've got to break the calcium off it. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt like heck. He said, but you've got to work with this. You've got to go go down there, get into the whirlpool. But he goes, if you can keep that warm and moist, don't pull it. Just keep it going.
Right.
And we'll keep the calcium off it, and you'll be able to heal quicker. And I said, okay, you're a young man, right? How quicker is quicker? Well, it took 5 days before I got back on the ice.
Right.
Now, I wasn't at full blast.
Right.
But at 5 days, I was back on. St. Louis University, when I told them, they said, you won't be back on the ice for 3 to 4 weeks. I was back on the following Monday, but I had to, you got the protocol, just like what
Right.
you're doing with the athletes here in the high school. I got there early. I had to go through a massage on my hamstring. Then they put a hot salve on it, and then they wrapped that sucker up. And I had to go through that for another month after I got back on the ice, just to make sure that hamstring was totally loose before I ever got back on the ice. But you got to have the athletes that are willing to go through the pain, because you can explain probably, and you and Jack can probably explain this a lot better. When you get that hamstring, your body creates a way to protect that hamstring. I only have one left attached to the bone. And he said, it's gonna be like a bone. It's gonna calcium up, and you'll never be able to stretch it like you did before, unless we get that calcium off there. Well, that thing was way up on the where,
Right.
and the fist. He gave me a towel, and I said, what am I going to need this for? He says, bite it, because you're going to need it. And he says, I'll give you some tissues afterwards. I said, what for? He says, you're going to need it. And I did, because you could hear that calcium crunching as he's pushing his fist right down my hamstring. 3 times a day, I got that done. 3 times a day for 4 days, and then stopped doing it. And he goes, you're good. He goes, the body has adjusted. You're good to go now. You just need to get the strength back into it.
Right.
So, but it takes that commitment, and that's why we're talking about these athletes not waiting too long.
Right.
Because once you wait too long, it really can't go back. You
right.
can't turn the clock back, can you?
Right.
It's a scary thought, but it can happen.
It is.
But that's what the neat thing is about the high school having you in there, is because these kids can go to you and say, okay, I felt a little twinge in my hamstring.
Right.
Okay, you got a twinge in your hamstring. We need to address it now.
Right. Yeah, catching it early is big. That way we can tell you even things to do at home or in your weight training class. We've done that too. We've gave kids, okay, when you go to weight training today, work on this. And the teachers have been really helpful in that. Is there stuff that we can be doing here or there?
So it's one day a week you're at the school, but
Yes.
you avail yourself throughout whenever the students need you.
Absolutely, yep. They're, like I said, they're more than welcome to come to my office any day during the week, or if they have nutrition questions or something like that, they're more than welcome to go see Nicole at the hospital as well. So.
And nutrition's very important in getting you back on the field or on the court again,
Right,
too.
yes.
Because you don't want to be just eating junk food, and the next thing you know, your muscles don't heal with a lot of greasy foods.
Right.
I mean, they heal, but it takes longer. If you're eating properly and a good nutrition, it'll help you get back out there much quicker. And so it's a commitment the athlete has,
Yes.
and it's a commitment that you have to the athlete.
Right.
And so it's a two-way street. So if you're prescribing a treatment for them and they don't do the treatment,
Right.
not benefiting anybody.
Right.
And if they, and I know this is probably tough, and I know you've heard this, but Doc, I'm okay. Let me push. I think I can push it, and you tell them not yet, right? Because you don't want them to you don't want them to re-injure
Right.
themselves. That's the worst thing that could happen is
Right.
get to a level where you're coming back, and the next thing you know, well, I feel great, Doc. I don't have any pain at all whatsoever. Yeah, well, let's just keep it slowed down for about another 2-3 days.
Right.
But get out there and get that muscle loose. Get that, be out there. So it's pretty amazing that we have this at our hospital, as we mentioned. Not very many schools have this opportunity to have somebody like yourself involved at the high school
Right.
and on that level where you work with the hospital and at your own private practice. That's pretty interesting. Did you have that when you were in school, Jack?
Did not, and I went to Waynesville.
I didn't have that in our high school either. So we're very, very fortunate to have that here in Salem. And so I hope the kids utilize you, and I hope they're honest with you, because that's the key.
Right.
When you're hurt, you're hurt. When you're not hurt, don't go in there and say you're hurt because you don't want to play.
Right.
That doesn't work either, because then you're putting a treatment, or you're putting a protocol together for an injury that doesn't exist, and that makes it kind of weird. You're trying to do something like that. But we really thank you for doing that with the school, and it's pretty impressive. We have not had a lot of athletes that have suffered long-term injuries,
Right.
which is, I credit that to this program. They got started with now. It's the third year now?
Started in 2018, I believe.
So this is the third year. So, okay, very good. Well, again, thanks for doing that. Thanks for coming back in so quick. I mean, surprised you didn't drag Nicole in with you. She loves to come on the radio. She just does. Well, anyway, guys, thanks for coming in. Appreciate that. If anybody has any questions about the sports program, can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, they can call me at 573-739-9000.
That's your office, isn't it?
That's my office. Mhm.
Okay, very good. So Brittany will be more than happy to talk to you about that, or if you have a student or might be your grandchild that suffered some injuries at school. They don't, I don't know, athletes don't like to tell when they're hurt.
Yeah.
But somehow, some way, usually parents or grandparents see something different. They
Right.
see their child every day, or grandchild every day, and they say, you're walking a little bit different. Well, I tweaked my knee. Okay, go tweak your knee and go talk to Britney about that tweaked knee.
Right.
Get it done now. You don't want to tear that meniscus any farther if you have a little tear, something like that. And with our hospital now with an MRI, you can get a quick look at that now.
Right.
So it's just getting better all the time. It's good stuff. Thanks for coming in, Brittany. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Did you guys have a happy New Year, both of you? Really good, New Year's,
Yeah.
Christmas, holiday get together. No major problems.
I didn't
Good. Good. Always like a good start to 2021. Again, thanks for coming in. Our spotlight on the Salem Memorial District Hospital. We got Jack and Brittany, and we want to thank both of them for coming in and spending some time with us here on KSMO.